Our kids are being made anxious with tales of the end of the world. Our electricity bills are soaring, and Australia is putting its economy and its national security at risk, all because of climate change science and modelling. So you'd really want to make sure that the models were right? That we weren't overreacting to a risk that is not as big as it seems, especially given how much money is involved in building the new energy industries and how much potential might exist for self-interest and financial gain to be driving the political agenda. My next guest is an academic from the University of South Australia who's an expert on modelling and statistical analysis. He wrote an academic paper with a European colleague that was published earlier this year in the peer-reviewed journal Science of Climate Change. The study has caused a stir because it challenges the validity and reliability of the climate models that are used by the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC. This is important because these are the projections that underpin the Paris Climate Agreement and the adoption of net zero policies. Dr. Keston Green is the academic from University of South Australia who co-authored the study, and he joins me now. Dr. Green, thanks for your time. You wrote this paper with astrophysicist Dr. Willie Soon of the Institute of Earth Physics and Space Science. What was the main finding?
Well, the main finding was a little bit different from what you suggested in your introduction, in the sense that we're not talking about climate science when we talk about the IPCC's forecasts. Our testing of using the scientific method, the testing of alternative hypotheses, really put a spotlight on the IPCC modelling and highlighted that it was not the result of a scientific process at all. And what we found was that when we tested using the tool of predictive validity, or against the criterion of predictive validity, how good are the models at making forecasts, or the hypothesis of making forecasts about data that wasn't used to estimate those models, the IPCC models fell over completely. They were making errors of up to 22 degrees Celsius.
What?
And the scientific method requires testing against alternatives.
So your point is it's not even science, right? It's not even science that we're dealing with.
It's not even science, because they were not testing alternative hypotheses. They were creating their own, or have been creating their own, data on the human activity. They've been creating their own data on temperatures, and then they say, well, our human factor, CO2, our variable, that is driving climate, and the sun isn't. And they chose a particular measure of solar activity in their testing to reject the role of sun.
So where you used
we tested the alternatives, where we alternative measures of solar activity, we found, well, in fact, solar activity is very predictive of what future temperatures will be.
So just to pick up on that, the models that the IPCC is using to measure both the carbon dioxide and the solar influence on temperature produced forecast errors as large as 4 degrees Celsius in forecasting northern hemisphere land temperatures and 20 degrees Celsius in forecasting rural temperatures. But the models that were independent for the solar influence was much less than 1 degree Celsius in forecasting temperatures. So for both rural and all land temperatures. So basically what you found was that the solar is very good for the forecasting. It looks like solar has the highest connection to temperature, and the models that the IPCC are using for both solar and for CO2 are way off. Is that right?
Yeah, way off. They're way off. Well, errors of 22 degrees Celsius. Well, what's a comparison? And when in science we want to compare the simplest with the simplest reasonable model, and the one that we tested against was median average temperatures. Let's say next year and 100 years into the future is going to be the same as the average or median of the historical temperatures. Well, when you forecast, that you're making errors of less than a degree. So that performs extremely well. So when you come along and add this new variable anthropogenic and say, well, let's say that humans are causing climate change, and it makes errors of 22 degrees Celsius. There's something desperately wrong about their testing and their creation of variables.
Well, I mean, it seems like a no-brainer. I mean, if it's so, you're just before we move on to the question of why this isn't obvious to everybody. You've basically found there that it's got more to do with the sun than it's got to do with anything man-made, right? That's the first thing.
Yes.
If there is a big change forecast anyway. So in terms of just the sun's impact, how bad are things going to get, do you think?
Well, the thing about the sun and volcanic eruptions, which also have an effect on temperatures, is they're difficult to predict.
And we certainly can't control them with net zero programs. So.
Well, that's right. So if solar activity were to go down, then we'd be looking at cooler temperatures. We've had ice ages before. They have drastically much worse effects on life on Earth than warmer temperatures. So there could be a big volcanic eruption, next year, which would cool the planet, dramatically, and then again result in serious losses through crops and so on. So the natural variables aren't predictable. And even if they were right on CO2 being an influence, which we I think clearly demonstrate that they're not, any influence from that could be grossly outweighed by changes in solar irradiance or volcanic eruptions.
So let's have a look at how you wrote it in the report. We'll just put that on the screen now. Our findings suggest that IPCC modelling fails to support the hypothesis that human carbon dioxide emissions have a meaningful impact on global temperatures. Unpredictable and uncontrollable variations in radiation from the sun and volcanic eruptions will continue to determine changes in the Earth's climate. Policies that deny that reality cannot avoid imposing great costs on the many to the benefit of the very few. Which brings me to the question, how's your paper been received since it was published in May?
Well, it's been received by you, Damien. Thank you. And I have done some podcast interviews, before. Not should we say, with the mainstream of the media, if you'd like, So this is a very powerful, lobby, the UN, IPCC, and the people who have. The small number of people who've got a lot at stake, and the journalists who've completely bought into this scary narrative and are scaring our children and everyone else with this terrible story that is not based on science at all. So it would go, taking a step back, it was very hard to get the paper published in the journals that should have been publishing it. Which is very disappointing, and the usual reaction from the scientific community to things that go against the
mainstream
narrative, the mainstream, is to suppress and ignore. So I'm very grateful for any opportunity to get this message out there.
All right. Well, you're going to be speaking. You're coming all the way from Adelaide to Brisbane. You're going to be speaking at a lunchtime function on Tuesday. Which people can get tickets for by going to aip.org.au. So if you want to see Dr. Keston Green discussing this and have a chat with him, get along to that luncheon in Brisbane on Tuesday. aip.asn.au, the Australian Institute for Progress, is hosting Dr. Green. Dr. Green, thank you very, very much. You've got a book out called The Scientific Method, A Guide to Finding Useful Knowledge, which people can also pick up as well. But thank you very, very much for joining us on The Other Side today, and we hope to have you back on sometime soon. If you like The Other Side, one of the best ways you can support us is by signing up for the products of our sponsors. And one of our best sponsors is PIA VPN, the virtual private network that stops people spying on your internet activity. It'll keep you and your family truly safe from the prying eyes of big governments and corporations without slowing down your internet speeds. And you can watch Netflix or other streaming services using your regular accounts with them as if you're viewing from any country in the world. You can sign up for less than $3 a month and get a whopping 83% off the normal price. Just go to piavpn.com/otherside to sign up and you'll get the discount. And you'll get more info on those special deals if you check it out. That's piavpn.com/otherside. That was a segment clip from our weekly Friday night news show, The Other Side, which you can watch in full by simply going to YouTube and searching up The Other Side Australia. Then you'll find our full shows playlist. You can also find all of our full shows and our segments on our own website, othersidetv.com.au. That's othersidetv.com.au. Help us build a whole new Aussie media by joining us over there and signing up for the exclusive side.